Welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we're diving into a vastly overlooked but intensely human story from the 1947 partition of India and Pakistan. You know, when we think of 1947, we immediately picture borders being drawn and millions of lives just completely upended. But hidden inside this massive historical earthquake is a truly incredible narrative about a minority community that actually chose to step up as healers and builders during the subcontinent's absolute darkest hour. So I've got to ask you, how exactly does a small minority navigate literally the largest mass migration in history? See, partition is always framed as this binary conflict, right? Hindus and Sikhs on one side, Muslims on the other. But there was a third group, the Christian minority, and they played a monumental role in both the physical healing of refugees and the political nation-building of two brand new countries. To really wrap our heads around the scale of what they faced, consider this staggering number. 250,000. That is the number of traumatized, completely exhausted refugees packed into just the Kasur border camp cluster by early September 1947. I mean, this wasn't some slow trickle of migrants. This was an acute, devastating crisis. People were arriving with horrific wounds and zero supplies. It totally sets the stage for the massive humanitarian effort that was desperately needed. Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today's Explainer. We're going to cover, first, the overlooked third minority. 2, healing the partition wounds. 3, rescuing the orphans' children. 4, S.P. Singha and Pakistan. 5, Mookherjee and Indian integration. And finally, number 6, a legacy of nation building. All right, starting us off with Section 1, the overlooked third minority, choosing unity and service over demanding a separate state. Unlike the other major groups in the subcontinent, the Christian community just wasn't large enough to demand its own sovereign state. The source material we're analyzing today really highlights how they maneuvered this incredibly hypersensitive religious landscape. Instead of isolating themselves, they made a very conscious, pragmatic choice. They threw themselves into the massive tasks of healing and nation building. Their whole goal was to achieve coexistence and safeguard their rights by becoming absolutely indispensable to their neighbors. Moving right along to Section 2, healing the partition wounds and the front lines at Hladia High School camp in Kasur. Now, what's really fascinating about this firsthand account is the sheer raw reality of it. This is a diary entry from Hladia Porter. She was an American volunteer nurse working with Christian missionary groups. She gets to the Hladia High School camp and finds 20,000 badly wounded peasants from Faridkot. Just imagine that for a second. Stepping into a makeshift hospital room, having never treated anything more than a paper cut, and suddenly you're facing catastrophic injuries. The bravery here, from her and countless others, is just astounding. The medical heroism happening in these camps was literally nothing short of miraculous. You had volunteer missionary workers, local Christian medical students, and completely neutral healers working around the clock. They were treating horrific, untreated sword cuts that were crawling with maggots. They were battling massive cholera outbreaks when the vaccines ran dry. But honestly, most importantly, they maintained basic human dignity. They found clean clothes for the dying, gave privacy to wounded women, and acted as a completely neutral sanctuary for anyone who needed help, regardless of their religion. Let's shift our focus a bit to Section 3, rescuing the orphaned children and a desperate fight against starvation. We really have to pause and just let the emotional weight of this diary entry from British missionary Katharine sink in for a moment, because the most vulnerable victims of this entire mass migration were the kids, separated in the chaos, abandoned, or orphaned. They were arriving at these camps completely alone, terrified, and deeply, deeply traumatized. The humanitarian workers fought these agonizing daily battles just to keep these infants alive. The stress and sheer starvation of the journey meant mother's milk literally dried up. So nurses like Porter had to scour the camps, improvising by tracking down abandoned cows just to get enough milk for the babies. They were even pleading with grieving mothers who had just lost their own kids to nurse the orphaned newborns. It's such a profound testament to their deep compassion and resilience when facing absolute despair. Let's move from those desperate medical tents over to the incredibly tense political arena. Here's Section 4, S.P. Singha and Pakistan, and the deciding votes for West Punjab. As the new borders were being drawn, the political weight of this Christian minority suddenly became absolutely critical. Back in early June, the Mountbatten Partition Plan gets announced. Fast forward to June 22nd, and Christian leaders, fully realizing their votes are going to literally draw the borders of these new nations, meet secretly at the Lahore home of Dewan Bahadur S.P. Singha. He was the Speaker of the Punjab Assembly. And the very next day, a legendary confrontation goes down on the steps of the Assembly. This is just a thrilling piece of history right here. On the morning of this crucial vote, Master Tara Singh is standing on the Assembly steps with a bared sword, literally threatening anyone who votes to join Pakistan. And S.P. Singha, he courageously walks right up to him and says, "Sine pe guli hayenge, Pakistan banayenge," which means, "We will take a bullet to the chest, but we will make Pakistan." See, Singha had actually met with Muhammad Ali Jinnah and trusted his promise that minorities would be protected in the new state, so Singha confidently cast his lot with Pakistan. Let's break down the razor-thin math of this historic vote, because it's wild. In the undivided Punjab Assembly, the final tally was 88 votes to remain in India and 91 votes to join Pakistan. You see that margin? It was 3 votes. S.P. Singha, Cecil Gibbon, and Faisal Ilahi, plus Singha's tie-breaking vote as Speaker. 4 Christian votes literally tipped the scale, legally making West Punjab a part of the brand new nation of Pakistan. Now let's cross that newly drawn border over to the east. Section 5, Mookherjee and Indian Integration, Building a Secular, Unified India. Our sources show us how brilliantly the Christian community adapted to their respective geographies. In the West, S.P. Singha showed immense pragmatism, aligning with the Muslim League to secure protection for the community based there. But in the East, H.C. Mookherjee pushed for complete integration and secular nationalism right alongside the Indian National Congress. Both sides were displaying incredible political foresight and this deep, deep desire to build stable, fair nations out of all the chaos. So the really crucial point is this. The All India Conference of Indian Christians explicitly refused special treatment. Under Mookherjee's leadership, they actively rejected separate electorates. They figured that demanding special, isolated voting rights would only breed resentment. Instead, they pushed for full, integrated citizenship. It was a massive gamble, but they believed that sharing grievances and participating in a common electorate was absolutely the best way to ensure equality and trust in a Hindu-majority India. Which brings us to our final section. Number 6, a legacy of nation building. The pillars of 2 new nations. And this brilliantly illustrates the profound psychological shift of 1947. You see, they abandoned their colonial loyalties to the British. They stopped being Christian Indians, which was a religious group defined by an empire, and they fully embraced being Indian Christians and Pakistani citizens. Through both heroic nursing in the mud and blood of the camps and shrewd political maneuvering, they completely embedded themselves in the fabric of their newly independent countries. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. How exactly does a minority's silent sacrifice shape the very soul of a newly born nation? Whether it was saving an orphaned infant in a Kasur schoolyard or casting the deciding vote that drew a national border, the Christians of 1947 prove that true nation building isn't just about demanding rights. It is about unparalleled service. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you a whole new perspective on the untold stories of 1947. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.